This video is on stage 5 of the inquiry project, creation and genesis of your slideshow. So we're going to work with this part of my mycology project, which I've been working on. This characteristics of fungi. I've taken all of my information. I've got a ton of stuff in my sample notes. I've got lots and lots of information that I've slowly kind of added in through Science Learning Hub. I've got a few other things in there as well. So now I've got all that information sort of plugged in. It's been processed. I know what I want to have in each slide. So now I just need to create each slide. So I'm going to start with this at the bottom because I've already actually done it. One of the things that came out of this, and I know we're only required to have 2 slides per section, but I felt like this piece explaining the life cycle of fungi was really important for people to understand. So what I did is I found this information. I got this from the specific Lumen Learning source. So I want to make sure that I honor that. I believe that was 2011. So I want to make sure that that's in there. And I felt like it would just make better sense to put a picture in there and be able to explain it using my speaker's notes from below. So before, this picture didn't exist on here. It just looked like this. I knew that I had this life cycle information, but then I thought, it would be really good if I had a visual for that. So I went and found a really clear visual from sciencelearn.org. It's up here, and I have made sure that my source for that image is in here, and then I pasted it in there. So now when I am speaking to the life cycle of fungi, instead of looking at notes, what people are looking at is a diagram that I'm actually explaining using my speaker notes. It's a lot more effective because it gives a visual for people to understand what you're explaining to them. So that's one option for combining visuals with actual research notes. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was on this second slide, which is talking about mycelium. So mycelium is the vegetative part of a fungus. It's the part that grows underground. And it's basically the part that's like neurons. It's like natural internet that exists underneath the ground. So these mycelium spread underneath the ground. And on my last video, I had mentioned that one of the things I wanted to use in my introduction was the fact that every footprint that we take on the ground, there's about 300 miles of mycelium underneath each one of our footprints. So that's really cool. They're thread-like. They live in colonies. They're found in the soil, or they can grow in straw or other different substrates. But how am I going to put that onto a slide that's really going to interest my audience? So I don't want to just put my notes, because then they're just going to read my notes. And some slides, you might just have short forms of notes and explain, and that's okay, but you don't want it on every slide. So what I went and found was a really cool video of mycelium spreading on YouTube. So I might be able to explain this and have a video to show them of mycelium spreading. So what I would do here is I would go to Insert, Video. I know where my YouTube video is already. I went and copied and pasted it, but my copy and pasting is not super happy today. So we're going to copy, and we're going to take there we go, to this one, and we are going to paste it in there. Yay, this is the one. So you'll notice it's mycelium growth over a time lapse. I think it goes over 25 days. I'm going to select that, and it's going to insert it into my video or into my slideshow. So what I can do is I can control a lot of different pieces. I can tell this when to start the video, when to end the video if I don't want to show the whole thing. So I can adjust those sorts of things as I go. But then maybe I get rid of the text, or I reduce the text somewhat. Maybe I put it on just one side over here if I want to have specific pieces of information. But I would go in here, make this larger so that it's a little bit easier for my audience to be able to see. Now I'm going to fix up this slide because you want your slides to look attractive, right? They don't want to look like a bunch of someone just threw a bunch of images and stuff on there. You want it to look really nice. So, but that's an idea for how we might be able to incorporate pieces like this into our slideshow. So if I did want to keep some text here, then maybe I would say it is the part of fungus that grows underground. And I would switch this out so it's a little bit easier maybe to see. And then maybe I would say, because an important part that they don't see in this video is that mycelium, it grows, but as it grows, it absorbs nutrients from the ground around it. And it does that by secreting enzymes into the ground and then absorbing the nutrients in the ground once it's broken down. So we could put absorbs nutrients from the ground by secreting, that's spelled wrong, enzymes into the surrounding area and absorbing digested nutrients. So there we go. We might adjust that, change it, but that might be a good thing that we want to make sure we incorporate in there. Or you don't have to say it. You don't have to put that. Maybe what you do is you just say it. You don't necessarily always have to have it in your slide. So you can see I just eliminated that text box. I changed my title to Run Vertical. And now this is a nice, neat slide where I can explain about mycelium, and then I can play a little video of it growing so that my audience is able to understand that. So the last thing I'm going to show you is this. In this slide, I got a lot of information in here. So, and that I want to be able to share with my audience, but I don't necessarily want to put all of this information in the exact bullet points in here. So I might just be very selective as to what I'm going to put in here. So I'm going to start this process by cutting and pasting what is in here into here. And you're going to notice how busy it is. It does not look exciting. Your audience is not excited to just simply read your slides. That's not exciting. So what you need to do is decide, what of these pieces do you want to speak to, and what do you want your audience to have on their slide that's going to help things make more sense. So definitely one is this first piece. I want to make sure that's on there, but maybe I don't need to mention that this is a multicellular organism with complex cellular systems. Maybe I don't need that bullet point in there. I can speak to those things. I definitely would say that it would include microorganisms such as yeasts and molds and mushrooms, but I might make that a lot shorter. Yeasts and molds and mushrooms. Yeast, molds, and mushrooms. And then I'm going to, get rid of that other piece before. There we go. So we might add that it belongs to kingdom fungi, but my audience might not particularly care about that. They don't necessarily know what a eukaryotic organism is. So I don't want to talk too sciencey if this is intended for a general audience. So maybe I'm going to take that out of there. The other thing is I could include that they're heterotrophs. They acquire their own food by absorbing dissolved materials. Blah, blah, blah. It's really long. So we could just simply say, instead of all that, they attain energy by absorbing nutrients from their environment. That's a lot easier to put in there. They are decomposers. So we might say they function as decomposers. We're keeping it very short. When you do this, there should be no more than 7 words in each line. I'm not going to talk about moving from place to place by growing because I'll talk about that in my next slide with mycelium, but I do think it would be important to speak about what they're used for. Maybe those are a little different, but you're wanting to make sure you don't have a whole lot more than 7 major points. This looks a lot nicer than it did before, doesn't it? So we're going to leave it at that for now. The other thing that we want to make sure we do is this is pretty boring to look at. So we want to make sure that it's got a nice background, the title stands out really nicely, and we want to make sure that that's the case for these guys too. So one way we can do that is by inserting different pictures. So I'm going to insert different pictures. I'm going to go to image, and then I've already figured some out. So I'm going to upload those from my computer, but you can also search the web if you wish to do that. So with the magic of technology, now I have inserted a picture in the background of my main heading. I've made sure that this title is also visible and clearly able to be read by my audience. Sometimes you just need to make sure that the colors are quite easy to see. You got to watch, especially with backgrounds. My next slide, I added in and adjusted here. I had this was up in my title and also down here, so I had to make sure that there was no duplicates. I adjusted things and changed them, made them a little bit smaller, and then I fit them in with some really cool pictures of fungus because fungus is cool, and there is a bunch of different kinds of fungus all over the world. So we've got like a really cool tree fungus here, and then we've got this really cool one that grows out of rocks and stuff like that. It looks like a rock. So really cool stuff. But what is important to remember is that this here is what your audience is going to see. What is down here is some of the things that you're going to say when you narrate the slide. So hopefully this gives you a good indication through these slides. You're not going to say a whole lot for your header slide. You might have a basic intro. You're going to have all what you're going to say in each of these slides and have really supportive visuals so that your audience stays engaged and doesn't feel like they're just reading your slides as they go through. All right. Good luck.